This is the Art of Network Engineering podcast. In this podcast, we'll explore tools, technologies, and talented people. We aim to bring you information to expand your skill sets and toolbox and share the stories of fellow network engineers.
Welcome to the A1 Poetry Hour. I call this one Life. In the stubby, you awake in fright, need to pick that routing protocol that's oh so right. You pinch yourself because you can't believe that reality would yield a network that's brand new. Oh yeah, they call that a green field. There will be sites everywhere, distributions, cores, and access, oh my! You calm yourself down and state, I need a plan. I can't do this on the fly. Sure, you could go manual, static route after static route, but anytime you needed to make a change, it'd be enough to make you want to shout. You build your pro-con list for hours, burning through pen after pen. You argue with yourself so much that you feel like you just can't win. Then, after pulling out almost all your hair, you step back and it's, I'm going with OSPF, is what you declare. You're invested now, you feel like you've joined the club, ASBRs, ABRs, summarization, and of course, even an area that's a total stub. Okay, this has gone on for too long. Is that AJ's head hitting the desk that I'm hearing? We'd better go check on him, because this is the art of network engineering.
Oh my God, another masterpiece introduction by Tim.
Yes.
Absolutely nailed it. Wow. Just wow. I don't even know how to follow that up anymore. I mean, just when I think Tim can't top the intro from last week, he goes ahead and he does it, and he just kills it. That was beautiful, Tim. Thank you so much.
You're writing poetry now, Tim. I mean, this is amazing.
Well, I think that was my first and only attempt, so I'm gonna go ahead and retire from poetry. I'm just gonna hang it up cold turkey.
There you go. That's strong.
You guys
man.
don't have to worry
Next
about
week
that
is a
one
haiku. I can't wait for the country song.
Oh, don't
Please
do
no.
that.
Please no.
All right, I guess I pushed it too far. All right, you heard Tim. I am AJ Murray at No Blinky Blinky. Here we are again, back another wonderful episode of the Art of Network Engineering. Thank you, Tim, for that wonderful intro. I really do love them, and you know what? The fans do too, because they're shouting out about it on Twitter. We're hearing about it in the Discord. Everybody loves the intro, so keep.
I'm just glad we're all having fun with this, guys. This
Oh man,
been awesome.
Yeah.
So much fun. Andy at Andy Laptef. How you doing, Andy?
Hey-o. I'm good. I had a day of technical confidence today. I feel good about myself today, and that has been rare lately. So I'm just walking with my head held high today. I feel like I understood a couple things today, and I'm implementing some kind of big deal tonight, and feel good going into it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Is it multiple pieces that are starting to come together, Andy? I saw you tweeted something out about Ansible and a few other things today. Is it just the big picture coming together?
Yeah. So, I've been on here crying about my new job, my new group. I don't understand it. And I spent a good amount of time the past couple of days kind of digging in MPLS a bit and all the things that kind of the underlay and the overlay and RSVP and signaling and LSPs and costs in the underlay, which will, it's kind of crazy. And I was overwhelmed by it. And I thought I was the only person on my team that didn't understand it. But, I got with some guys, and things are starting to come together. I guess that's the quicker way of putting it. And I have to connect the data center to this MPLS backbone we built. And I've been terrified thinking about having to do that someday. And I feel pretty good about it. So, yeah. Long answer to your question, AJ, but I kind of didn't feel like an imposter today for the first time in a while.
So is part of the revelation there that you're not the only one struggling with this, that this is,
Yeah, that was helpful.
Yeah.
There's another guy on my team that's brilliant, and he was asking a lot of the same questions that I was unsure of on a technical call. So it's new to a couple of us, which is nice.
Yeah.
We have a couple guys who are the MPLS gurus, right? And then there's now the rest of us kind of have to get up to speed because we're going to be responsible for putting everybody on this thing. So yeah, it was just a good day. And then I was working with Auto Macho a lot with with an automation PC put together, which is going to touch like dozens of devices for me, which I'm
Mhm.
just blown away by. I don't know how I would have done this without automation. There's like 30 devices that have to be touched, and it's just too many. So
Crazy.
yeah, yeah.
What a way to learn, though. I mean, you got a use case right there in front of you. You don't have to try to like sit there and guess like, how am I going to use automation? You know how you're going to use it.
Yeah, and I don't create automation, so that's something else I kind of learned with this whole automation journey. Like, there's people who create automation tools, and and then there's consumers of it. So, like right now, where I'm at, I'm a consumer of it. I'm not
Yeah.
writing playbooks, I'm not writing Python scripts, but
Mhm.
I'm consuming the platform that's being built. And so, I'd like to be further along eventually. I want to write some playbooks and scripts, but just to be able to consume automation and understand what it's doing and like how do I back all this out if I have to is good. That's
Yeah.
where I'm at. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you go into this thing tonight, Andy, this big multi-site thing, are you in this on your own, or do you have people that are standing by waiting to help, or people doing it with you?
Yeah, we there'll be people around. So I mean, it was assigned to me. I'm responsible for it. I'll be the one pulling the levers, but everybody on this super team has said like, "Hey, man, I'm going to be up." They're either working and they're like, "Hey, hit me up if you need me," or I'm going to be watching basketball. Man, just call me on my personal. I can
Nice.
hop right on. Which yeah, it's
That's a good
huge.
feeling.
Yeah, I can tell you that I would not. I keep running into these people and these teams that are just so generous with their time and they want to help me succeed. I would not have got this far. I'd be doing something else if people didn't help me. So yeah, I'm good. How you doing, AJ?
I'm doing well. But before we jump to me, I want to jump to Tim Bertino, the mastermind behind these introductions. He is at Tim Bertino on Twitter. If you're not following him, go follow him. Tim, how are you doing?
I am well. Once again, there will be no more poetry, so I hope everybody got their fill.
That's okay. We recorded that, so we can play that back as many times as we need to.
Did you have a bongo? What were you? That was amazing. Like, what were you playing? Is that a
Uh,
drum?
I had a children's toy. It is it is actually a tambourine, and it's got the little symbols on the side. And
Awesome.
my wife, yes, I've pulled her into this as well. She was kind enough to tape the cymbals down so it would sound more bongo-ish, if that's a word.
That's
So
awesome.
you can get a glimpse of how
Behind the
much adult
scenes.
fun that I have in this house.
And your wife is helping. That's that support
Yeah,
system we
yeah.
talked
She
about,
gave
right?
me the "you're lucky, you're cute" kind of thing, which I think she just has to say that. I don't know that she really believes it,
That's fantastic.
but no, things are going good. I'm really glad. I mean, things are going good with me, but I'm really glad to see um, how well you guys are doing. AJ, I'm glad it sounds like you got a kind of a home stretch lately. You were on the road for a while and burning the midnight oil, putting in a lot of work. And Andy, what you posted on Twitter, the kind of the revelations you've been having there at work with automation and pulling stuff together. It's really good to see. I know we've all had some rough times over the last year, and it sounds like things are really coming together for a lot of people, even in our community as well. We'll get into the wins here in a minute. It's just things are going well.
Yeah, things are going really well. And to Andy answer your question, pretty proud Vermonter here this week. Our state hit a massive milestone on the road to recovery. We have now vaccinated 80% of the population in the
Wow.
state that is eligible for COVID-19
That's got to be
vaccination.
the highest in the country.
Yeah, it is. And so with that, the governor has lifted all restrictions having to do with the pandemic. So masks are optional. They are encouraged if you're not vaccinated. Or if you have some other ailment that would otherwise, preclude you from being vaccinated, or I guess extra susceptible to COVID-19 or any other illness for that matter. So it's kind of weird. Like the doors have just flung wide open, and we've got a bunch of people coming into the state for vacations, whatnot, tourism. Traffic has picked back up like it's never been in the past 18 months, but it feels good at the same time. We can go places, do things, and don't have to worry about much,
So
seemingly.
I wasn't going to mention it, but my wife and I went out on our first date last night
Hey, hey,
Nice.
in 450 something days, however long it's been, right?
Yeah.
And to your point, we're down to like 300 7-day average in Pennsylvania as an example, and it hasn't been that low since the first week of this thing, right?
Right.
So like, yeah, it's been really it's hard to put into words how nice it was just to take my wife on a date and to be out around people and like have a normal you don't know
Normal
what you
human
have until it's
interaction.
gone or taken away, right? Yeah, and just the fact that we couldn't do that for a while, it feels so good to be able to do that again. So I'm
Yeah.
glad you mentioned that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. A buddy of mine who's a bartender at a local restaurant. Restaurants have opened back up full capacity. He announced, publicly on social media, like, "Hey, I'm moving on. Here's my last shifts. Come visit me or whatever." So I went over and did that last night, and it was crazy. The restaurant, I think, has had like reduced staff for a while, and they weren't anticipating the surge that
Mhm.
was going to happen with the reopening of the restaurant, and the place was absolutely packed. And they basically had two waiters, uh, the owner, another waitress. And then there was my buddy who was the bartender, but he was maybe behind the bar a little bit, and then running around waiting on tables doing all sorts of stuff. So it was good to see, but then like you could tell those guys were like really overwhelmed with everything going on. So
That's called
uh,
being in the weeds. I waited tables
yeah.
for 5 years. They were in the
Yeah,
weeds.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But I digress. I definitely want to shout out to the community, the support, the feedback, and everything we've gotten from our first sponsored episode. Thank you again, Open Gear and Dan Baxter, for joining us last week. And we released the episode yesterday, and the feedback has been overwhelmingly positive. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yeah, the interaction there does nothing but help. It
Right.
shows Open Gear that we've got the listener base that we do, and not only just listeners, but people that care enough to give feedback on socials and all that. So thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, I also want to thank the community because since we kind of announced that these podcasts are sponsored by you, the community, and you can head over to our merch store and purchase some merch. We've had quite a few merch sales, and I have to say, I think people are flocking in there for these bad boys.
Yeah, they're nice.
We got
It's a
these
good addition.
wonderful Art of Network Engineering pint glasses. They came out really, really nice. I ordered some for the entire team, and so I'm going to get these shipped out to all the co-hosts so we can do a little virtual cheers with an A1 pint glass here soon. But
And the
yeah,
fact
these are great.
that people in the Discord have been proud about it too. You see people post what they're getting
Yeah,
and all that. It makes us feel good that people are having as much fun with this as we are.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah, and I can't wait to see because I can see what people are ordering. And I have ever gotten like a bunch of samples, t-shirt. I think I got a hat at some point. There's an accessory bag with our logo on it. You can stick some SFPs and cables and stuff in. But they've added a lot of new stuff to the Teespring store. The pint glasses, of course, is one of those items. Some people have been ordering water bottles. There's an insulated tumbler. Some people got some tapestries with the A1 logo on it. So I can't wait to see who ordered that and what it looks like. Kind of get their feedback on the quality materials and just overall see it hung up in someone's office or in their home or room or wherever they decide to put it. So excited to see people getting this stuff, and it feels really cool to see our logo on a bunch of merch. And we're going to see
Definitely.
more of our logo on a bunch of merch. We've been talking to marketing team at Open Gear. We're putting together some backpacks that are going to have some nice swag in it, donated by Open Gear. The backpack itself will have the A1 logo. These are going to be a limited run. We're going to give them all away to the fans. Even the co-hosts aren't going to get these bad boys.
Bah.
Um, and I know they're also going to be filled with some Open Gear swag, some stuff from the A1 team, and they're also going to have some training materials. We've got some very generous donations from some Cisco Press authors, and we're going to put more materials in there as well. So stay tuned. As soon as we get word that we're going to have those available to give away, we'll start the giveaways, and you'll have your shot to win a limited edition A1 backpack full of goodies. So keep an eye out on Twitter, and I'm sure we'll talk about it on the podcast as those become available. And also, if you're so inclined, please continue to support us with your merch purchases. Without further ado, why don't we get to some wins? Andy, can I get a goat scream, please?
It's fun every time.
HBU.
I should probably order some of those and send them to our contact at Open Gear and have her drop those in the
Oh,
background.
yeah.
Yeah,
Oh
I
my
think I'm going to
gosh.
do that after we get off the recording tonight. So
Nice.
So winning this week, Neost from the Discord posted that he passed, or they passed, sorry, their A plus, the CompTIA A plus. So congratulations, Neost.
Very nice.
Well on your way.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Word Do, I believe, was the screen name from Discord. They closed on their first house.
Hey.
That's a big one.
That is a big one.
That is a big one.
Congratulations. Tough market to be
Congratulations.
buying in. Good job.
Right. Robin Canella, our buddy that used to live on the East Coast, now moved out to the West Coast. He passed his English class and he's now like 28 to 30% done with college. So congratulations.
Wow. Congratulations.
It's got to feel good. And my brother from another mother, Bill Murray. Actually, none of that's true. We just have the same last name. They passed the VCTA DCV. So that is the VMware Certified Technical Associate for Data Center Virtualization. That is a certification that I proudly carry from October of 2013 when VMware first released that program. It was free for a limited time, and I jumped right on that train and got that cert. So congratulations, Bill. He said he's on his journey for the VMware Certified Professional in Data Center Virtualization and kind of stopped to take this. He got a free voucher for it to see, how his learning is going, and he passed it. So things are going well. So it looks like he's well on his way to his VCP. So congratulations, Bill.
Yeah, Bill's been on a tear lately. That's cool to see.
Yeah, he has.
And Robin as well. Robin's been pretty vocal about his journey back to school to get his bachelor's. So it's cool to see him get those wins.
Yeah, for sure. You got to love all the wins, right? Like I love how, people come together. Not only are they sharing the wins, they're also sharing like the failures, right? Like we got failure plaques, and I feel like sometimes that channel is just as busy. And as many times as people like dump a fail in there, there's like 10 people right behind them to like lift them up and like, hey, it's cool. We've all done it, kind of thing. So just absolutely love the community. So, all right, that is the end of the wins for this week. So Andy, let's get another goat scream in there. Hot buttery udders for the scream.
The goat who shall not be named.
The name we do not speak, was that a movie or something? I don't know.
Nice. All right. So this week we are talking about two different things, but two very similar things. We're talking about burnout and rust out. So earlier this week, River from the Discord started this conversation. Great conversation, went on for quite a while. I think everybody's kind of familiar with burnout, but then he kind of brought up this concept of rust out, where burnout, you're getting stressed out by being overworked, and it goes on for this extended period of time. You don't really have time to like recharge, and it's very stressful. It really stinks. And the kind of opposite of that, or the other end of the spectrum of that, would be rust out, where you're not really being mentally challenged. You're just kind of like coming to work every day, going through the paces, and sometimes that can be equally frustrating. And so we definitely wanted to touch on that. We think it's a really important set of topics in our industry, and I'm sure you guys are both familiar with burnout, I'm sure.
Nah, I don't know what you're talking about.
Right.
That was a really neat conversation to see, because it was really organic, and I had actually never heard the term rust out before, so
Same.
it was cool to see that defined, and how you can suffer from it and come out of it. Another thing that I wanted to mention before we got too deep into here, to the listeners, is that we actually had a different topic picked for tonight, but because of that discussion in the Discord and everybody jumping in and contributing to the chat, AJ decided, hey, let's talk about burnout and rust out instead, and people were really receptive to that. So So here we are. It just goes to show that your involvement matters in this.
Yeah, and that's not the first time that we've like decided to change the topic at the
Right.
last
Right.
minute because of what was going on in the Discord. It was just a couple weeks ago before we recorded with Open Gear that we recorded another episode because it was a topic that was brought up or suggested in the Discord. And it's like, yeah, that's a really great idea. We should definitely, have a conversation about that.
So keep talking to us.
Yes, and that reminds me, with the 50th episode upon us, this is episode 49, by the way, guys,
Oh my,
49.
oh my gosh.
So next week we're recording episode 50, and we're still looking for your questions. We've gotten a lot of great questions. People are, sending us DMs. They're just tweeting out the questions in response to some of our posts. We actually got our first video recorded question today. So we'll be able to add that into the episode and play that for everybody. And we're just getting some really, really good questions. I want to kind of tease them, but we're not going to answer them now. Okay. So no, don't give me your answers, but I'm going to pull them up here. Real time.
So is this to give people ideas of some things they could ask? Because we're not spoiling the fun, right? By reading them now.
Yeah, absolutely. So what experience made you realize you wanted to get into networking, and what makes networking interesting to you? That's a very good question. Very good question. If money was not an issue, what would be your dream job? What's the favorite thing that we've accomplished so far? And the one that really hit me that I'm still not quite sure how to answer, but do you realize just how much of an impact you have had on so many people's lives with the podcast and the community that we brought together?
I'll answer that. I regret nothing.
Nice. So some really good questions coming in. Keep them coming in. Again, you can shout us out on social media. Send us an email. If you're feeling so inclined, you can record yourself on audio and or video, and we will edit you into the episode while you ask your question for everybody to see and or hear.
So as a listener, you can be on the show. People
Absolutely.
will see and hear you.
Absolutely.
That is cool.
And we are we're playing with a new service tonight that we've recently signed up for that if it works as advertised, and we believe it will give us a chance to have live studio audiences while we're recording the show. So we're going to get our feet under us with a couple of recordings. And once we're feeling comfortable, we're definitely going to open up the session to a public audience. We'll let you guys know when we record, and you can jump in, watch us, listen to us live. I think we'll have definitely some opportunity to invite people onto the show in real time to ask questions, provide input, and all that fun stuff. So we're getting to know this tool. This is our first night using it, but we'll see how it goes, and hopefully we can welcome you into our homes and onto a live quote unquote episode of the Art of Network Engineering.
So wait, not only could they watch the episode be created, they might be able to interact with us?
Absolutely, yeah. Absolutely by chat, and then it looks like there's a way that people can call in while we're recording it, ask a question.
A call-in show. What have we done?
Right.
Just for the listeners here, Andy has been bringing up the concept of a call-in show for probably well before I've been on here. So he was pretty excited when AJ mentioned that. This is quite the evolution, fellas. We're like big kids now.
Yeah, it's been really fun to if you go back and listen to an episode or just look at the content, where it's come from in the last almost 50 episodes. So it feels good taking the next step. I love it.
All right, since I'm burned out from poetry now, let's get into that.
All right, so let's start with this. What is burnout? What is burnout to you guys? Right, have you ever been in a situation, whether it's work related or maybe while you were in college or at some other point in your life, have you ever experienced burnout? What is burnout to you? Tim, you have any thoughts on
that? First off, I think that burnout is just kind of I say just, but it's an exhaustion, right? An emotional, a mental, and even physical exhaustion of, it could really be anything. It doesn't have to be work. It could be any factors in your life. And it can come on strong, and it's really how do you deal with that is the biggest thing, because while it's good to prevent burnout from happening, if it does happen, I think it's important to first recognize that and then figure out how to handle it. One of the things I was thinking prior to the show, AJ, was um, how do you know, or what are kind of some of the warning signs that you might be suffering from burnout? And that's a real question to you guys.
I mean, I know for me, it's just this like exhaustion and this overwhelming feeling of like, I don't want to go deal with this thing that I have to deal with. It's definitely a lot of stress in there. And I think sometimes it can present itself in different ways because, you might not realize that you're stressed out about something and, everybody's different, right? So sometimes stress presents itself differently for one person. Stress and anxiety will present itself differently in one person than it might for another. So it's not like there's these definite markers that are dead giveaways, right?
And that makes it tough, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's one thing that's really scary to me, because I've really enjoyed working in tech in multiple different facets, even pre-networking. And that was one thing that I've always kind of said to myself is, when it comes to be the time where this isn't fun anymore, that's when I know that it's time to take a hard look. and
Right.
and I've been really fortunate and lucky that that hasn't happened. It's been, to this point, still an adventure every day. But yeah, I think I've said it on here before. It's not a super happy fun time every day. You got to take the good with the bad and everything. And again, that's not just work. That's all facets of life, and just trying to get through it. Do you think that just because of, and I'm asking this because how I am with routines and everything, and I'm a creature of habit. Do you think that it's important to focus on maintaining a balance and maybe keeping a routine to keep your mind busy? Because that's one thing that I've always done, and I still don't know yet if it's a healthy or unhealthy habit. But I find myself the happiest when I'm keeping my mind occupied.
Right. And I think for me, that's like one of the signals that, the stress is coming or the burnout's coming because you start to give up, your routine to make more time for work or, whatever it is that's burning you out. When you make the choice or when maybe it's not even a choice, right? Like you have to work on this other thing and give up, things that you like to do, albeit temporarily, that's when it becomes more of a chore, not so much fun, and it turns into burnout real quick. Andy, what do you think?
I've been doing a little Googling. So I just want to throw out a couple terms and definitions just to level set myself. Because as we were talking about this episode, I started thinking, like, well, I think I know what burnout is, but like, how do you know if it's just stress? And like, there's some
Right.
gray areas. And so what I like about this definite, I'm just on Google, right? Psychology Today. It was like the first hit on Google for like burnout. But feelings of not in control, mental and physical exhaustion, health problems, um, cynicism, depression, lethargy. But like, how to identify it, right? What's the difference between like stress or sense of dread about work? Like, to me, because I can think of one period of burnout for me, and yes, it was just an intense sense of dread. Like, I can't believe I have to do this,
Hmm.
again. And the difference between stress and burnout, I'm looking at this, is that stress is temporary, but if it feels like it's never ending,
Okay.
you're starting to get into the burnout territory. Extended periods of stress and a lot of feelings that come with it. It seems like hopelessness, irritability, anger, like depression, and I guess I'll just jump right into it. Like, I think we talked about it before, and I don't know how deep I got into it, but the whole COVID experience and work. I was basically trying to maintain the same level of productivity prior to COVID than after it hit, and the big difference were the kids coming home full time. They were going 8 hours a day at daycare, and that allowed me to concentrate on work 8 hours a day. 3 and 6 years old. I mean, that's
Not going to happen.
That's
it's
tough.
just
Yeah.
it's a handful, and they're there, and my wife also has a career, so it wasn't like, hey, you go take care of him, daddy's got to work. So I was working as much as I could. I'd get up early in the morning and work, which used to be study time or workout time. I'd work as much as I could all day. I'd work through lunch instead of sitting with my family having lunch. Like my wife and I used to sit and have lunch together, prior to COVID. Um, and then as soon as the kids were in bed, 7:30 at night, I'd be back at it working until at least midnight. And that went on, I don't know if it was months, but it just seemed like forever. But I was
Yeah.
just working every second I could. And what's interesting is the shift in mindset for me was everything that wasn't work was in my way of working. And it made me so irritable. The kids interrupting me, or like just, you name it, like, guys, you gotta leave me alone. And it was unrealistic. I didn't handle it well. I mean, I could have managed it better, but I had never lived through a global pandemic, and I don't know how to have a 2 career family with kids home. But I definitely dreaded work. I was definitely irritable. I was definitely depressed. The article also talks about mental and physical problems, and that's when I developed and was diagnosed with migraines. I wound up on migraine medication, and it was really
Was that within the last year,
yeah,
Andy?
yeah.
Okay.
I was during COVID. We were literally, there was a 6 or 8 week period where I was on this podcast in such bad shape. I don't know if you've ever had a migraine, but like you almost don't even know your name. The pain so bad, and I'm just sitting here like, because I love the podcast, I love getting together with you guys, and I refuse to like. But I was burnt out at work. It was what it was. Like,
Had you
and
ever experienced anything like that before?
no, I had never. I don't think I mean, I think back to. I was trying to think other times in my life, like my senior year or my last semester in college. I had 18 credits while I was doing an internship, while I was working full time waiting tables.
Oh my gosh.
But I wasn't burnt out. I was just super freaking busy, and I had to be really strict with time management, and like, that's probably the busiest I've been prior, and I wasn't burnt out. So yeah, I believe that was my one and only burnout that I can, say. And looking back, I mean, it came down to a decision that I made. Like, I was fearful for my job at the time too. 2 companies merged. People I used to work with disappeared, didn't work at the company anymore. I kind of felt like, I better show them what I got. I need this job. So I made a decision that I was just going to keep my head down and try to keep being as good at my job as I was prior, with everything that happened at home. And it was my fault, right? I made that decision, but it was just a recipe for disaster. It was awful. And the end of it was me exploding on my boss. He asked me how I was. He said I sounded a little snippy on a call. And I remember saying, like, let's not have this conversation. Just please, let's talk about what we need to and move on, because I do not want to open this volcano.
How did he handle that? Did he, I don't want to say
What
push the situation, but did he want you to open up?
he did, he
Yeah.
wanted to know what was going on. He's like, no, I don't, I want to see if I can help you, man. The floodgates opened. It was just months of just pent up, you know, and to his credit, I'm not exaggerating if I tell you I went on for 30 to 45 minutes of a tirade of just, how I felt and all
Yeah.
the things I was going through. And to his credit, he handled it very well. And he helped me, and he put me in touch with his boss, who really helped me. And since then, my relationship with my job slash career has changed, because, there were it's kind of funny, but like, there were times in my life where I was very broke and didn't have much. I could barely pay rent, like, as a younger guy. Like, so for whatever reason, those experiences are kind of lingering. Like, I feel like I have to keep going and keep improving my career and getting better and better. Now I got a family and a mortgage and kids. Like, the thought of me working less because the kids are home because of COVID just didn't compute in my brain, because what if I lose this job? This is the only job on the planet. What if I lose it? And then we'll all be homeless. Like, in my head, that's where it goes, is,
Right.
don't work as hard, lose my job, we're all homeless. It's ridiculous.
And that's a scary place to be in your head, right?
Yeah, you know what I mean? So, I mean, fortunately, like we've talked about before, I'm in therapy. I talked to her. We reframe that like, stop it. It's ridiculous. Like, but, just based on experience as a young guy struggling, that's kind of where it went. So, I know it was a long answer to your question, but yeah, that's kind of my burnout experience. And it was awful. It was really awful. I never want to do that again.
Yeah.
Andy, I just want to tell you that I really identify with that last part that you were talking about because that's kind of like exactly what happens to me as soon as stuff like starts to go south, right? Like that happened to me very early on in the pandemic because I've had a really good couple of years, like there was a point where, we were selective about what bills we had to pay and, when exactly we had to pay them and, picking and choosing when to do certain things. And now we don't have those worries. Like we pay all of our bills. Do we go on like lavish vacations? Do we have expensive vehicles? Do we have a lot of, no, we don't, like we'll take a trip somewhere in New England. We don't all hop on a plane and go somewhere tropical. That's just not us. It's not, we can't afford to do that. And quite frankly, I don't think we want to do that. But at the beginning of the pandemic, like I had a book full of projects and one by one, all my projects are starting to cancel. And all I'm thinking is just like, I'm going to lose my effing job. Like,
Yeah.
and then I'm going to lose my effing house. And then, but it was crazy to think because the entire world is going through this pandemic. They're not going to like foreclose on everybody's house. Like that just, but that's where my head went.
And
So
the
I
amount of,
identify with it's so much with what you're saying.
yeah. And the amount of weight behind how that affects your loved ones. You know what I mean? When I was young and broke and wasn't sure where my next meal was coming from, sucked. But then when I look at my wife and kids and we depend on, my salary,
Hmm.
that's a different type of weight on your
Oh, yeah,
shoulders, right? Like,
for
Right.
sure.
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So I want to shift the discussion over to AJ for a minute, because I want your perspective on this. I think many of us have worked with value added resellers, with post sales teams. And in my experience, those teams have been incredibly busy. They go from project to project. They're balancing things. So from that aspect, do you think stress and burnout comes more from the amount of work or the gravity of work, or is it a combination?
It's definitely a combination, right? Like, I'm on a particular project right now. It's the only project I have, and it at times has created a significant amount of stress and burnout. Like the customer can at times be very demanding. There's kind of this like maybe slightly unreasonable expectations, but I only say that because I think there's a perception that the customer has that might not be reality.
The customer's always
Um,
right, AJ.
yeah, exactly, exactly. And so that there's a bunch of things about the project that make it challenging, and so yeah, there's definitely been periods of burnout, and I think it's mainly to do because of the workload. Like there's just so much to do. There might not be enough people, enough resources allocated to the project for a number of reasons, right? Like it's summertime. People are on vacation. So when people go on vacation, we got to pick up someone else's workload. We don't want someone to miss a vacation because that's the time to unwind, recharge, and come back with a clear head. Like that's how you escape the burnout is relaxing. And so we want to make sure everybody has that time. But there's still a workload that has to shift, and sometimes it shifts onto other people that already have a full plate. But we got to do what we got to do, kind of thing, right?
And I guess how do people communicate that? Because you said that you've got this big project, and we've talked about it before, and that's kind of the main thing that you're working on right now. How was that decided? Was that you voicing that to management, saying, "Hey, this is what it is, and this is what I need to focus on," or is
Mhm.
that management seeing that that's the case and they're shifting the workload? What's that balance been like?
So I will say, a lot of times when you encounter a problem in life, it's amazing what a simple conversation will do for you.
Hmm.
And to Andy's point too, he sat down, he had that discussion with his boss, and life changed for him. And so, we the engineering team thought that we had communicated like, hey, from where we sit, the way things are going, this is not going to work. Something's got to change. And some things changed, but not the right things changed. And it finally got to a point where, we're getting deployed for 2 weeks at a time, 3 weeks at a time. We're away from our families. It's stressful. We're not home to help take care of the home, the kids, or whatever the case may be. While we're on the road, because of certain circumstances, um, there's only so much customer issued laptops. We can't connect to the network unless we have a customer issued laptop, right? Like it's very common, whether it's commercial, government, whatever the case may be. Very very common to not be able to connect to customer gear without a customer issued secure laptop kind of thing. So it leaves the people that have those holding more in the bag, right? Like we're doing the install stuff at night, and then the next day we got to do post install support. So I'm working until 11, 12, sometimes 1 o'clock at night doing the install with the installation team. And then the next morning, people are coming back to work and stuff's broken, not working. And so I got to be online, remote in, do some changes. And then come 1 o'clock, we're starting the cycle back all over again. So it leads to working like a, 14, 15 hour day. And that can lead to burnout very
That's a
quickly.
recipe for burnout.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
see that's the thing is you just said it right there, AJ. You said that can bring in burnout quickly. And so I think you need to be extra cognizant of your daily habits to be able to sense that and see
Right.
when you need a break. And I think we've brought it up in the soft skills episode, and I think again in the on call episode about communication. And really up until now, the communication we've been talking about is more on the technical side, providing updates, letting people know status of projects, what things are broken, what the ETA is to get it fixed. But the story that both of you have just told show that's just as important on the mental health, the emotional side as well,
Hmm.
to communicate. And hopefully you're in a culture that's good enough, that management's good enough to work with you, to understand, to really care about your health, because in all honesty they should, because it's only going to reflect on your work and what you're bringing to the table for the company. So yeah, communication is not just for the technical side, not just for the day-to-day, the work side. It's definitely just as much for your mental health. Because I guess I should ask you, Andy, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I got to think you felt at least a little bit better after that 45-minute talk with your boss, right?
It was a relief of a pressure valve.
Okay.
And I felt heard. Um, yeah, the communication is huge. And I don't know if it's a guy thing, right? But like, I feel like we sit like in our pain and don't communicate it. Like, like man up, right? Like you're a kid and you're told to man up, like don't cry, man up. Like, so to communicate, that you're in discomfort and need help isn't really something culturally, at least, in the West
Sure.
that's fostered. So, yeah, you got to ask for help, right? You got to communicate like, hey, I'm drowning over here. And I'm pretty communicative, but I really didn't do that until it was almost too late. I wanted to ask AJ, how does burnout manifest for you? Like, do you get snippy with the wife and kids? Are you just tired? Like you said, you got burnout with this crazy
Yeah.
project. I mean, how does it start to invade like your personal life?
Yeah, I can
Yeah,
definitely have a sense of like having not a short temper, but just like a short tolerance. Like,
right.
you know, I, normally my son being like, "Hey dad, hey dad, hey dad," like that's fun. We go back and forth. We have questions, and sometimes I'll go back to him like, "Hey, hey, hey, stop that! I don't like that." I'm like, "Oh, I don't like it either," kind of. But when I start to sense that like, oh wow, this is maybe rubbing me the wrong way, and normally I don't mind it, kind
You're
of
not as
thing.
patient, right?
Yeah, yeah. When I
Yeah.
start to lose my patience with stuff, that's when I can tell that like I'm getting stressed out.
Yeah, that's a good indicator
Yeah, for
for
sure.
sure. And you got me thinking when you guys were just talking, like I guess it's a function of the hours worked, right? Like, can you burn out working 8 hours a day?
Oh
Right?
sure.
Like, can you? I mean, I
Oh
guess you
yeah.
can, right? Like,
that's
yeah,
where I think it comes into the gravity of the work,
yeah, right.
in what it is you're doing. Because yeah, I mean, AJ, I don't know since you've been home how many hours you've worked, but you've mentioned that this is the main project you're working on. So even if you are dropped down to 8 hours a day from 15 hours a day, the stress and the gravity of that project, I would think, could be, you know, just as hurtful as working 12, 14 hours a day.
Yeah, I mean, totally. Like, I'm home now. I'm not working 12 to 14 hours a day. I still continue to work like 8 to 9 hours a day. Um, and just the kind of like, I don't know, almost pending doom, right? Like, I know the work that's ahead of me. Some of it I can do right now, and I do it right now. Other, like, I'm waiting on other people. We're waiting on the customer. It's just like, the next site is coming, and then, that's going to start to cycle all back over again, where we might be deployed for longer hours and stuff like that. We are trying to work out a plan where we're not gone as long. But some engineers are taking vacation, rightly earned. No qualms with that. I myself have some PTO coming up, which I'm looking forward to. But at the same time, like, I know that me not being there is going to put more workload on to somebody else. So even when I want to try to relax, like, I get a little stressed out about that, because I know that some team members can be working harder in my absence, kind of thing.
So that being
Um,
said, let's turn this around a little bit. We've talked about how we notice burnout and how we handle it within ourselves. What are some of the things we can do as, people who care about other people? What are some of the things we can do to help others, or to sense that people are having issues, and just try to help them either back on the right track or just be an ear? I mean, what do you think we can do?
So I would say, before we jump to how do we help other people, how do you help yourself?
True.
Like, and
It's
for
the whole
me, and I
the
think,
the whole airplane bag
Yeah.
face
right,
mask thing, right? Put yours
right,
on before you help anybody else.
That was the first thing I thought. Like, ultimately, you're responsible for yourself. And like, I don't think somebody else can manage your
right.
balance, right? Like,
And I can't, exactly that point, right? Like, I can't
yeah,
help somebody else manage it if I don't have it managed for myself. And
Sure.
and for me, it's the being healthy thing, right? Like, making healthier choices. Like, for a long time, I had time to do exercise at home, like go out for walks, go for a jog, whatever the case may be. But then this project got so overwhelming, and I felt like I was glued to my desk. Like, I tried to step away, but then I'd get hit up on chats like, oh, hey, customer needs help. It's like, well,
right.
I'm not at home. Now I got to run back to my house and get on the customer laptop and be able to assist them. It's not something I can, do remotely, unfortunately. So, self care is a big part of stress management. If you're not doing the self care, then that just makes the stress even worse.
Yeah, and that's the first stuff to go, right? When you
Yeah.
don't have time. Like, oh, well, I'll just, I won't exercise today, or I won't go for that nice walk, or, won't walk the dog, or,
And it may not seem like a big deal in the moment, but choosing to do that, to let go of that for a period of time, it builds up, right?
yeah, what do they say? It's like the death of a thousand cuts. Like, you start to give up little things, little by little, you're trying to get some time. And I don't even know. I've heard people say, I know it happened to me too. Like, you don't see burnout coming. There's just a moment that you're in it and you're
Right.
over. Like, people that are in burnout aren't aware they're in burnout. They're just miserable and overwhelmed and dreading it. And again, from my experience, fortunately for me, my boss poked at me to find out he sensed something was going on. So maybe that's the answer to your question, Tim. I mean, at least if you're a manager, be aware, pay attention, and if you see somebody suffering, get involved. Right? Like, that's what he did. He
Yeah.
got involved and saw if he could help. Which I really appreciate.
So I've got an example of that. When we were deployed a few months ago, back in March, there was four of us. We all had rental cars. We're all going different places, different days, driving around, tending to different sites. Taking care of stuff, right? And we get to this one site that we all have to go out to. It's like 90 miles away from where we were operating, and one of my team members was gonna do the usual thing, buy a bunch of Red Bull, hop in the car, and drive out to the site. And it's just like, not today, dude. I am not letting you do that, because we have a very long drive ahead of us. You look exhausted, and I don't want to risk you, driving your rental car with nobody else around out to this remote location, working all day, and then having to make that drive back. I would feel a lot safer if you rode with somebody else. And they weren't happy. They were about to jump in the car anyway. And I said, hey, look, I'm gonna pull rank here and be firm on this, because I fully believe that this is like a safety thing. That, like,
Yeah, good for you.
your safety depends on me making this decision. And I was absolutely right, because when we got out to the location we were working for the day, he curled up in the backseat of the rental car and took a 3 hour nap. And he
Wow.
needed it, and we let him do it. Like
Yeah.
it was safe, right? It wasn't like a dog in the car. We cracked the window for him. It wasn't too hot. It was March, but he got in a nice 3 hour nap, and he was able to function. He felt a whole lot better.
We need to look out for each other, right?
Yeah,
It's
you got it. And I
yeah.
think, that then rolls into the question, or to answer the question, right? Like, what do you do for other people? Like, at the time, all of us were in this shit together, right? Like, it's kind of like being at boot camp. You form a special bond with people, and I'm saying that on a whim, right? Like, I've never been to boot camp, but it's I've heard people, like one of the guys that's on the team was in the Air Force, and he likened what we were going through to being in boot camp. It's a unique experience. Everybody's in a shitty situation, and that's where you kind of form that tight bond kind of thing. And the four of us, the engineers on the project, we get along great. We have a good time, and we just kind of recognize that we're in this shit together. So we look out for each other. We take care of each other, and just when we spot things like that, we make sure, like, we'll step in and I don't know, answer questions for other people when we know, like, hey, he's burnt out. We don't want him to, like, say the wrong thing in front of the customer, or we don't want the customer to get a sense of what's going on with us or whatever. I'm just making stuff up at this point, but you understand what I'm saying. We look out for each other.
Yeah, and I think there's really simple things you can do too. One thing that I try to do from time to time is somebody will pop into my mind and I'll just send them a quick text. Hey, just want to check in. How you doing? Because I think those kind of things can just trigger that open up of emotions and communication that people may need. And it's back to the whole thing about noticing burnout. I think it's one of those things that by the time you really notice what's going on, it's already too late.
Hmm.
So to just have those people that are just kind of reaching out, it doesn't have to be a long drawn out conversation. Just, I mean, that works for me too. When people just check in out of the blue saying, hey, was just
Right.
thinking about you. How you doing? That kind of thing. I think it can really turn things around, or at least start a conversation. So it doesn't have to be something drawn out, planned out. It can be just something as simple as starting a conversation.
Right. Yeah, because having that conversation can sometimes be enough of a relief. Like,
Exactly.
feeling heard and getting some good feedback might be enough to, like, help drop some of the stress. Because sometimes the stress is, like, self-induced, right? Like, you think you're under so much pressure and there's no other option. Well, having a simple conversation may say, like, oh, hey, like, if you're stressed out about that particular deadline, like, maybe we can push that off a little bit to give you some breathing room, kind of thing.
That's the thing, man, cuz my old boss, if you give me a deadline, I'm going to deliver it. I don't know what's wrong with me, but I just feel like that's what I got to do, right?
Hmm.
And I used to really stress about it. I remember being on a call with my old boss once. And we're talking about this project, and I'm like, "Yeah, we're I don't see how we can make this date. There's just too many unforeseen things happen." And he goes, "Oh, don't worry about it, man. We'll push it out." And I was pissed. So I'm like, "Wait a minute. Like, wait, that's a thing? Like, we can cuz you told me this has to be
Dates are
done.
flexible.
Well, yeah, like you told me this thing has to be done because reasons. And I'm like, okay, my head's down. I'm going to do it. I'm a good soldier. And I make myself sick basically over it, trying to get to
Right.
that date. And I realize we're not going to. And he's like, oh, don't worry about it. I'm like, well, what the hell have I been working so hard for this whole time? Like, what good? So, but again, it was kind of like news to me, like, oh, like, okay, somebody sets a date. It's not the end of the world. For some reason, I take it very, I don't want to say take it personally, but if there's a deadline, if like to me, I feel like integrity is very important. And if I say I'm going to do something, I do it and you can count on me and I'm reliable, right? And
Yeah.
I
If
take
if
that I
if
take
you're
it too
gonna
far. You give me a deliverable date and I'm like, yes, no matter what, which is ridiculous. And then it's not a good place to go.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from, Andy. If you feel like if you're gonna put your name on something, it's gonna be gold. It's gonna be something
Yeah.
that you would rubber
Yeah, you can
stamp.
count
So,
on me,
yep.
but I guess, don't take things so it's not that important, right? Like we're not my wife likes to say like we're not solving world peace here, right? Like okay, like so this thing gets pushed out a couple weeks, whatever. Like no, nobody's people aren't dying. Isn't that what you said, AJ? Like it's one of your things. Like did anybody lose
Well,
their
Tim
life
can't say
today?
that. I think he works in the
Well,
wrong industry to be able to say that.
so have you ever been burnout, Tim? Have you been able to like avoid that in your
Um,
career?
I I think I struggle with putting a label on anything. Uh, Definitely have dealt with and deal with stress on a daily basis. My what I'll call problem, or one of my problems, is that I'm very much that same way, Andy. If there's a date on something, I'm going to stress about it. I'm a very all or nothing personality. I feel like if my name's on it, I got to do it. I got to do it right and when. So yeah, I've dealt with that stress. Luckily, I didn't have to deal with the level of burnout, what I'll say, that you had to deal with last year, because my wife is home and was able to handle the kids and handle the school from home. Lucked out on another front because she is a teacher by trade.
Wow.
So um, I think she has dealt with much more burnout than I have in the last
Yeah.
year. Um,
Did you see that in her? Like she was
oh
definitely,
yeah, for sure,
yeah, yeah,
for sure.
right.
But she's the kind of personality that she is gonna fight that to the end. She's gonna go through it and push through, and that's where it's important. Where her and I just take that time in the evenings when the kids are in bed, and we check in on each other and make sure things are good. And yeah, the stress is there. Burnout can get there. You got those big projects where we've had weeks of one or more maintenance windows in the evenings, and that can wear on. But I do benefit from culture of management understanding the time we're putting in and being lenient on getting some sleep, sleeping in, that kind of thing. That's not a big deal. And again, it comes all back to communication for me, because I think if you have those big projects or big issues that you're working on, and you don't think you're going to meet a deadline or something's not right, to me it's so much better to speak up earlier than later. If you're weeks out from a deadline and you already don't think you're going to make it, and you're not going to deliver on time, I think you need to start speaking up to management at that point, and not getting days before and go, "Oh yeah, there's no way we're going to do this."
I usually don't speak up, and then the anxiety just
It just
snowballs
eats
day
you,
after
doesn't
Oh
day.
it?
yeah,
It does.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
does. Like we're never going to be able to do this, but I'm not going to be the one to say it, right? And then it really eats you up. It's smart to communicate it earlier.
yeah, definitely.
So I don't want to rush us on to the other part of this episode. But I do know that you guys have some maintenance windows tonight. Uh,
Well,
and
real
so
quick, before we get the rust out, I just want to, again, looking over at this nice little Google thing, but I think we've already hit on it, is drawing boundaries at
yeah,
work is probably, self care, so how to put a bow on it, right? How do you avoid burnout? Like, yeah,
yep.
yeah, reach out to each other, help each other. But someone that we didn't talk about was like boundaries, like, know when to say no, and can you say no? And, because if you just keep taking on work and you're overwhelmed, and you just keep taking on work, and it's definitely a learned skill, saying no,
Hmm.
and and a tough one if you're not. But yeah,
Yeah,
so
because nobody
Yeah,
wants to hear no, right? I mean, people ask you to do something because they want something done.
and you're getting paid, right? And it's your
Yeah,
boss, and his job is to give you stuff, or her job, and hey, I got to give you this thing, like
but then
so.
when you're working on a team, you don't want to sit there and say no. I'm sorry, I can't do that because everybody else is doing it.
Yep.
And you know that like if you don't do your part, then maybe it's just going to fall to somebody else, kind of thing. So there's so many pressures on it. But you're absolutely right. Regardless of the situation, like you got to draw lines. When you can't handle anymore, you got to say that, right? Because you're a resource for the project or your team. If you commit to doing something you can't do anyway, you might as well tell them, I'm sorry, I can't do this, kind of
Right.
thing.
And maybe it's not a wholesale no. Maybe it's like, I can't take it now.
Right.
Can it sit a week or two?
Sure.
Probably in a week or two I can. A little give and take. So
yeah,
anyway, that's
definitely.
just I just wanted to wrap, I
No, I
saw that over
appreciate
there,
that. That
and
was
yeah,
nice
yeah.
to
Yeah.
to put that bow on it.
So what's that other term we're unfamiliar with?
So the other end of the spectrum is rust out. So the way River explained it in the Discord, and he did it really well, was just maybe it's not you're not sitting around, but you're not being as stimulated at work. You're kind of maybe doing the same or similar things. You're not really being challenged. You're not learning new things. You're letting your skills like literally rust away
That's a problem.
as it were. And I don't know about you guys, but I have ever experienced that. And there's two cases that come to mind. where I experienced rust out working for these particular companies. And so, in one instance, I was working at a help desk. It was a new help desk. They had kind of hired me on to help start the help desk because I had some help desk experience. So, um, there was supposed to be a time of just in grade, and then I would be given more permissions in the network and help out projects and stuff like that. And so it never came, right? Like I worked there for like a year and I had the same permissions that I had started with day one. And I could feel myself getting snippy. Like it got to the point where like people would call in and be like, I know how to fix your problem, but I can't. So I have to transfer you now.
That's what you
Kind of
tell them
thing.
on the
And
phone.
oh yeah, yeah, and that's what I would tell them. And
Yeah.
because like I wanted them to know that because the team that I was transferring them to, like their whole thing was just like, well, we need a help desk because we're taking on too much work. And
Mm.
it felt like most of my calls were getting transferred up to the other team. And it's just like, this isn't as effective as you guys maybe think it is, because if you had given us more permission on the help desk, we could take care of more issues, kind of thing. And so after a year of that, it's just like, I don't think this is going to change. I voiced my concern, many times, like, hey, I'm more capable than the permissions you give me. I could take this workload off of you if you just let me do it. And the response was, well, we'll consider it, or it was a hard no, and then there was never any good explanation as to why not, like. So that was one situation. Another situation was I worked at another place as a sysadmin, and they sent me to a week-long boot camp on a new version of Windows Server, and I learned about all these great new features that were coming out. I couldn't wait to get back and kind of implement them, because we could certainly benefit from all that stuff. And this wasn't like the first instance or only instance of that. Like I did a lot of training on new technology, and when I'd get back, and it was just always like, oh yeah, here's what I learned, and I think this is what we could do. And none of those projects ever came to fruition. And after a while, it's just like, why are you sending me to training? If we're just going to do it the way we've always done it, and not benefit from the training that you just paid, hundreds or thousands of dollars for. Like, what am I doing here?
Yeah, you're only taking it halfway at that point.
Yeah. Yeah. And after a while, it just gets frustrating. You like to feel like there's opportunity for growth. You like to feel like you're useful, like you have these skills you bring to the table. And if you can't contribute to the fullest extent like you want to, it gets boring. And I think that's where the rust out comes from.
Yeah, where rust out is scary for me. And again, thank you, River. I didn't even know that was a term before
Right.
you brought that up. I mean, I get the idea behind it, but I had never heard it called that term before you'd brought that up in the Discord. What's scary to me is I look at how I spend my time both at work and outside of work trying to better myself as an insurance policy. What can I do to better myself so that if for whatever reason I get up one morning and I'm not at my current employer anymore, and I got to go find something else, what do I do to better myself to get there? And so I think that you can do that even if you're working in a position that is just kind of the mundane same thing day after day. I think while you skill up, you can stay in that. You have to take that upon yourself to know that it's going to take time and that kind of thing, and you're going to need to invest your own time into it. But yeah, that's what's scary to me is that being at some point in a place where I'm not skilling up or continuing to perfect skills, and then that day may come where I need to be marketable and maybe I'm not as much as I could be.
Right.
So I've been fortunate ever since I've gotten into the networking field that I've been in a place where it's evolved so much that there is always something new and there is always that drive to learn the new things. But I can definitely feel where people are coming from, that they do feel like they're in those situations where they just aren't moving. And I mean, how do you combat that other than by joining our Discord and learning with like-minded people?
3 years.
Yeah. I mean, go,
Go
go, go
ahead.
ahead, Amy.
I was just going to say 3 years into being a cable guy, it happened to me.
Yeah.
I was a
Yeah.
top rate. I had basically seen everything there was to see. I knew what the problem was before I got there. I knew what I was going to have to do to fix it. So I wasn't challenged anymore. But the scarier part, and I don't like being bored. And like when I feel like, you spend what, 8 hours a day at work, let's say. And for me, if you just feel like you're just going through the motions and kind of like Groundhog Day, and like it just, I almost feel like my life's starting to waste away when you do that, because you spend a lot of time at work. But also, you touched on the skills. I mean, yeah, I had been skilled up. I was at this top rate. Like there was nothing else to learn, and I didn't see a path. And that was my only skill I had at the time. So I'm like, what do I do this forever? Which is when I got introduced to the CCNA, and here we are. But it wasn't. I wouldn't say it was as painful or uncomfortable or terrible as burnout, but I think I want to say equally destructive. But if I stayed in that job, I would have gotten snippy like you, AJ, like that you weren't enabled where you were, like another idiot who's can't figure out their cable remote. Like, really? You know what I mean? You don't know how to press the on demand button to get to movies. Like, I'm here again. Like, you're not
Yeah.
challenged, and it's the same thing. You're like, oh my God. So yeah. Fortunately for me, somebody said, hey, check out the CCNA thing. And now I'm exhausted from all the new skills. Yeah.
And I think that can be a fine line that you need to be careful to not cross too. It's back to the balance thing, because you could definitely take that to the extreme and say, okay, I'm going to do my normal everyday work, and then I'm going to get up early in the morning, I'm going to stay up late at night, and I'm going to skill up so I can do that next thing. So I think you need to be careful too and find that balance of being able to maybe train on the job, or if you are looking to something else, finding out when it is the right time to go after that next thing, so you're not getting into a point, to your point earlier, Andy, that all you're doing is working. You're living to work versus working to live, or no, backwards.
You got it.
You know what I mean? Don't
Yeah.
do as I mean, not as I say. Yeah, it's back to balance. Balance and communication, I think, are the things that I say in every single episode.
Yep.
Amen.
Excellent, guys. Well, I want to thank the Discord again for having these great conversations and kind of sparking the idea. I think these are conversations worth having. If you have ideas for, either comments you want to add to Burnout or Rust Out, please shout it out in the Discord. If you have ideas for an episode, please absolutely shout that out. We have a channel called A1 Fans, A1-Fans. Drop into that channel, give us a shout out. We'll respond back to you, and let us know your idea for the topic. We would love to hear. You're our listener. If you want to hear about a certain topic, we want to hear from you. And if it's a good enough or an exciting topic, we'll bump something else out of the way and make room for it. Any last minute thoughts, guys, before we wrap? And you guys got to go work on a maintenance window and cut your arm off.
I got to go write some more poems.
Nah, man, always a pleasure.
Absolutely. I love hanging with you guys.
Yeah, me too.
Excellent. Yeah. Well, that's a wrap. Tim's going to go write some more intros, and we'll see you next week on the Art of Network Engineering. See ya. Hey, everyone, this is AJ. If you like what you heard today, then make sure you subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcatcher. Smash that bell icon to get notified of all of our future episodes. Also, follow us on Twitter and Instagram. We are at Art of Net Eng. That's Art of NETENG. You can also find us on the web at artofnetworkengineering.com, where we post all of our show notes. You can read blog articles from the co-hosts and guests, and also a lot more news and info from the networking world. Thanks for listening.